Hi, I am here to give you my review of The Amazing Adventures of Kavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. I don't really know how to say his last name. Shabon. And first off, how amazing is this cover? I mean, that's totally one of the reasons why I picked this book. It's gorgeous. One of the things I didn't know when I picked this book was that it is 700 pages long. Oh my gosh, it's so long. But it was really an interesting read. I think that probably not very many people actually got all the way through this book in a month. I mean, that's a lot of story. But I wanted to tell you the two things that I really liked about it. And in my blog post, I'm including some of the things I didn't really like about it. But that's not what this review is for. So one of the things that I loved about this book is that it is very colorful. I don't really know any other way to describe it. But you know, all books are just text, right? It's like words. But this story is about two comic book artists during the time of World War II. And I think it was so, such like a big undertaking for this author to try to describe comic book artistry and the art and the stories that these two characters were trying to make. And somehow when you're reading it, this black and white text, the images of these comic books just come alive inside your head, and it's very striking and very real, and you feel like you are reading a comic book and seeing it for yourself. But also there's just a lot of parts of the story that are just so visually striking. The author's so good at describing things that you feel like you're seeing them. So that's, to me, like, I just thought, this guy is so good at writing. He can make these images come alive inside my head in all different kinds of ways. And honestly, I'm not a very visual person. In some ways, it's hard for me to conjure those kinds of things up in my head. So I really appreciated what this author did in his story. The second thing that I really liked about it was were the themes that were developed throughout the book. So this book, like I said, has a lot to do with comic books and World War II. And you know, and even in the book, they reference the fact that people kind of look down their noses at comic books, like it's a inferior art form, or that it's for kids, or things like that. And this book is so interesting because it's very literary. It's very high-minded. I mean, it won a Pulitzer Prize. So he's, you know, kind of speaking in this very high-minded literary speak, but he's writing about comic books. And in so doing, I feel like he is elevating this art form that a lot of people look down their noses at. So while he's doing that, he develops these really interesting themes that have to do with comic books and the art involved there. And I don't want to give away too much, but he digs really deep to do that. And I really loved what he did as in that way in the book, and what he had to say about maybe like why the art of comic books was developed, you know, around the time of the 20s and 30s and 40s, and why it took off and why it was meaningful to so many people. And that was really interesting to me, and it made me just kind of like the author even more. So those are two things that I liked about this book. And I would really like to hear what you thought of it, what you liked, what you didn't like. Also, next month we are reading Jackaroo, which is a super fun book, and it is much shorter, so hopefully you can actually read it in a month or possibly a day, like most people do. So anyways, thank you for listening, and I will see you next month.